Today is day 3 of the April 87 7-day retreat. Yesterday we were going to talk both about fear and desire. But fear got the better of it. Even though desire was implied there all the time. The desire to be rid of fear. So today we will continue and look at what is called desire or wanting with its will. In many religious traditions, desire is thought of and treated as something bad, evil, detrimental, and it is pictured often as the devil himself, Satan, or maybe the seductiveness of woman. So at the outset of talking about desire, let us not bring to it, if possible, any attitude or point of view or prejudice issuing from our background, from our religious/moral background. Because if there's any feeling or conviction that desire is evil, then how can one look at it? And what this work is about is to look at what we are. In all of our, it seems, infinite, fragmented aspects. Desire, will, and fear being some of the most powerful ones. I wonder if one could say that desire or wanting is always of something or for something. Even though one may not be clear what it is one desires, but one desires something, wants something. Something to bring satisfaction. Desire setting up some tension in the system, mental, physical system. And the satisfaction being the release of that tension, the calming of it, the temporary stilling of it. If it was the wrong thing or not enough of the same thing, the tension arises again, and the desire for something, with the will to get it. And the expectation, one may not spell it out for oneself in these terms, but the expectation is for satisfaction. even though in satisfaction the tension of desire may be missed, because that too may have a satisfaction to it. The tension before release. So the tension of desiring itself may become the object of wanting. To get the release. And in the release, the wanting of tension. One could ask, how does this all start? And usually when we ask a question like this, we become historical, at least as far as our own life is concerned. Go back to early childhood. Most of us don't remember coming out of the mother's body, but we see a lot of little babies, our friends, our children, our grandchildren. And the first thing in the baby's life is crying. Maybe just for air, for breath. One wonders how it must have felt not to have that instant of breathing. The change over from the system of breathing and the system of feeding to an entirely new one. Whole psychological theory and therapy built upon this birth trauma. And then, of course, the crying for being fed, crying for the mother, the breast, or if there's no breast, then the bottle. I think anyone who has observed a baby at the breast or bottle, and it doesn't matter which baby, whose baby, what color, skin or eyes, or there is an expression that comes upon the face of a baby when it is nursing or feeding from the bottle that is unique to that instance. It doesn't occur during the rest of the day of the child. Maybe if the finger goes into the mouth. But it's not quite the same. It's so universal. An expression of, it can't be described, one has to see it. The absence of any conflict, provided the nursing goes well, of course. No conflict, no tension, no wanting, it's all happening. And often a playfulness, the fingers at a cloth, the mother's blouse or her hair. Seems all the senses are openly receiving, with no threat, no fear. Of course, this comes to an end. Often the baby goes to sleep. And then when there's hunger pangs, then the crying again, and the repetition of this. There's also crying when there's our soiled diapers, irritation. And the removal of that and the ending of the crying. The removal of the irritation on the skin. Or maybe there's no hunger, and yet there's crying for just being picked up, held, cuddled, talked to. The satisfaction of that. How does wanting and desire arise in us now? Or can one even speak of it as arising? Is it there as a substratum of our existence, always there at some point or other, ready to bubble up, but sort of there, not quite conscious? Is one interested in digging this, looking at it, finding out? The baby we just talked about has very definite physical needs. For air, for nourishment, for lack of irritation, and for touch. It didn't used to be acknowledged that babies had need for touch, but I think today there's no question about it after some appalling evidence came from orphanages in which children were fed properly, but not spoken to or cuddled for lack of personnel either, or lack of knowledge about this. Sometimes I don't know why one needs knowledge about things like this. But very, very likely the nurses there hadn't had that either. I was told when I was a little baby, after being fed, I was put on the balcony if it was nice weather to get fresh air. That was very important. Baby had this and this and this and this. The checklist was taken care of. And out she goes on the balcony. A cook who was hired to do the cooking, and she had only come on the condition that she not have anything to do with these 3 children because she didn't care for children, got the job, and when she heard that baby crying on the balcony, it broke her heart, she told me. So she picked that baby up. And this was my mother. That's where I spent all my free time almost in the kitchen reading to Lisbeth. Sitting on her lap. When she had time, she didn't have much time, but I understood that. So there are definite physical needs this organism brings with it into life. And there are mechanisms to see that one gets it. Not very intricate. A little baby can only cry. That's all that's there. All the whole repertoire is crying. That's not much. So there is a total, almost total dependency of the little baby on whoever takes care of it, of her or him. And if that person doesn't appear, then what? I think our own helplessness is learned from the very beginning, from day one. Our utter helplessness and our utter dependence on others to keep us alive and well. And with this utter dependence on others to keep us alive and well goes behavior. Requested, demanded behavior to act in a certain way, or else one won't be smiled upon or given supper. This is often used as a punishment by parents to, maybe not today so much, I don't know, send the child to bed without supper. Today, in this feeling that we come upon, if we pay any attention to the way we live and think and feel and desire, that desire is not just for food and drink and being washed, cleansed of soil. Maybe very much so, to be held, to be touched. The satisfaction of that, the pleasure of that. But there is other wanting, isn't there? It's still wanting satisfaction. But the means to get the satisfaction are changing, are increasing as we grow older. And yet intrinsically with each one of us, if one is at all aware, there is this ease of something missing. Not missing somebody or something, but something missing. And this feeling of something missing seems to go along with a scanning device in the brain, looking for what is missing and trying to get it. Either in real life or in fantasy. Trying to get satisfaction, to alleviate this feeling of something missing. In talking here, please, this is not trying to advance a theory of desire. It is looking, and to the extent that all of us participate in this looking, feeling it out for ourselves, then these words may be helpful, pointing at something. If one is not participating in this process here of inquiry, then it remains very wordy or intellectual, or as some people say, you say so many negative things about human beings. Why don't you say something about human kindliness? But I don't think we said it in the opening talk, but the talks here are not given to convey or give out inspiration, but to give understanding, insight into how this body-mind, which we all share throughout the world, throughout history, how it functions now, this instant, from moment to moment. And if in this inquiry here, in this mutual, common inquiry, you find something doesn't sound right, something isn't so, it is different, it feels different, you missed something, or you went the wrong path, the wrong way, then please bring it into a meeting. We don't have discussion periods after a talk, but we have time in meetings to look at it anew, to start this whole thing over, so that both you and I can be clear about what's going on in us this instant and throughout our life. Because the amazing thing is that if there is the clarity of insight, of understanding, there is a freeing which comes not through will, through intention or vow, it comes through seeing, understanding. Not intellectually, but directly, seeing, discovering something. So is it a fact that deep down, inwardly, meaning inwardly within ourselves, all these words are tentative. I'm willing to use new ones if you don't like these. Deeply within there is a feeling of something missing. And the urge, a felt movement to get satisfaction, to alleviate this painful, tense feeling of something missing. I don't know when to talk about this feeling, whether now or later. This feeling of something missing, because it goes together with a feeling of me, self. I am here separate from you and everyone else. When that feeling is there, which for most human beings throughout the world, throughout time, has been there all the time, when that feeling is there, then there's the feeling that something is missing. I think those two go together. And this is for each one of us to put to the test, to question, not to accept. When there's any shadow of a feeling, may not be such a shadow, maybe a very solid, deep conviction, me here, and you over there. Or sometimes people say in a retreat that feeling is very shadowy, elusive, but it's there. me, an idea of myself, an image, a fleeting image of myself, a memory, an anticipation and an expectation. All this is me, or a fear. Did I just say that? A fear. Something may befall me. This is me. It's a manifestation of this feeling of me. And with this feeling of me goes the feeling that something is missing. You can say, well, how do you know that? How can you make such a statement, such an assertion? I'm not asserting it. I'm just saying it. It's for each one to find. But when that feeling of self is not there, not even a shadow of it there, no thought of self or other, no image, or if the image should come up, it's seen as an image and not taken for real, not taken for this me. The seeing being the freeing. So when there's no feeling of self, then is there a feeling of something missing? I say there isn't. But it's for each one to find out. There's no feeling of something missing. Therefore no desire to get something to fill the hole, to get satisfaction. None of this tension and release, rhythm, repetitive rhythm of our life. Instead of that, there's just what is. And that twittering is not separate. Because there's no me to separate. This from that, or you from me. These may be rare moments. One mustn't assume anything about them. Because time has nothing to do with them. But the instant the feeling of self is there, there is the desire for something. The object taking as many forms as you will. Desire for another human being, to belong to one. Maybe since we started with the baby, as one thought the mother belonged to one, until one found out otherwise, another baby in her arms, or back to work. So there's this desire to have someone one's own who won't leave, who won't belong to another, who won't hold another in his or her arms. I am yours and you're mine. This kind of a vow. Because whatever one desires and maybe gets, one becomes dependent upon. I don't think there's any question about this. But please check it out, question it for yourself. That whatever one desires and maybe gets, one begins to depend upon. To keep giving. For the spring to keep refreshing, keep pouring out the water, not to dry up. And yet the fear is there that it may dry up. I think that goes inevitably with dependency. The fear that what one depends on may cease to be there for one. It's often not an unfounded fear, because in fact it does cease. The relationship breaks up because there's interest. Either indifference develops, the initial glow of imagery loses its glow. One sees actual human beings and not princes and princesses. The way we live, with so many things to do and to pay for and to earn money and so forth, this nitty-gritty daily existence has a paling influence on romance. And then romance lures someplace else, outside of this nitty-gritty home relationship. So, but even before one may have lost someone on whom one depended for being cared for, given satisfaction, that fear may be there before one has lost that person. One may not lose that person, but be afraid of it. Try all kind of ways to bind that person. And of course, the moment any one of us feels bound, we rebel. A tiny child already doesn't want to be told what to do. Somebody just told me, asking his little daughter, "Shall I read you a book?" And the answer is no. And then picking up the book and coming herself. So, can one see for oneself, understand profoundly that where there is desire for satisfaction, and the object of desire is found, that there is fear of losing it, fear of the satisfaction not coming, decreasing, diminishing, ceasing. And then the mind, the scanner, searching for something else to give satisfaction. One may try another relationship, or one may not. One may look for some different satisfaction in something more reliable, seemingly more reliable, in a career, art, profession, or in a religious pursuit. It's the same desire that moves these pursuits, that generates them. The desire for satisfaction, because something is missing. even though the objects of desire can be of enormous variety. Can be the desire to get rid of this desire, which is such a pain, such a fear. Produces fear of not getting and fear of going without. And then the idea, what if I got rid of this desire or this underlying feeling of me, which has been tried time and time again. The mortification of desire and me through all kinds of violent means. But it's still the operation of desire and will. Do you see that? Still coming out of that feeling of self and the tensions connected with it. The tension of dissatisfaction. The tension of separation, of being cut off. And not wanting that anymore, wanting something different, something free from that, and then pursuing what promises to bring that freedom with desire and will. Can desire kill desire? Of course not. Can desire kill the feeling of me? One can kill the body, but that's the desire for a better state of being than the pain of this present life. So where are we? Is it possible to see desire? To really be fully aware of it? To be aware of this feeling of self? The solidity of it or the shadowiness of it, without willing it away. That's self, willing itself away. We've talked about that. So to see what's going on, feeling of me, and do nothing about it. Just the openness of awareness. The German word for awareness is Gewahrsein. And that maybe in awareness is this where is the same word as the German word wahr, which means true. Seeing what is true this moment. And not going to battle with it. Seeing isn't a battle. Seeing is seeing. The me is the battle. So is it possible in a sitting, retreat like this, sitting or walking out on the balcony in the woods or wherever one may be, to how does one begin? Doesn't one begin by not knowing. Realizing all one knows about it, one's attitudes toward it, are old stuff. We talked in the beginning about all the old straw on the meadows, lying flat now. And these new grass blades coming up around and in between and through, undisturbed by this old stuff, have nothing to do with it. So can there be a listening to whatever's there? Desire, fear, feeling of self. All the old straw. Quietly. Not wanting to get rid of it. The grass doesn't want to get rid of the weeds from last year. It doesn't care. Just listening, without knowing where this leads, what this is. And completely there to feel the pain of it, the fright of it, the anxiety. Because one also doesn't know what that is. We went through that very carefully and intensely yesterday. Not knowing what fear is, and yet no separation from it. Not knowing what discontent or desire is, and yet no separation from it, just listening to it, because it's happening right here in the human being, right everywhere in human beings. It's not a private matter. And the listening, the quiet listening, open so that those church bells and the rustling of clothes is there too. It's not excluded. It's not separate. It's all there, together with this feeling of discontent or yearning. It is so simple. Simple meaning doesn't have to think about it. It doesn't have to have any plan or preparation for it. And one does not need to speculate about any outcome because one doesn't know. Because the future is thought, the past is memory. All that's there is what's here now. What is that? Can one listen? No matter how scary, painful, boring, frightening. Not know these feelings. Oh, this is my old terror. It isn't. It's something new. What is it? One has never met anything directly. Or has one? If one has, then one knows there's nothing to be afraid of, except running. This is completely uncharted territory in which we don't know, in which we have no tool, no method, no theory, just what is. And taking a risk. Because there's no choice. The choice are our old, fangled ways of desire and fear and dependency and anxiety of loss. And the whole thing over and over and over again. But leaving that aside, what is this instant? When the mind really doesn't know. And there's no withdrawal, no escape. We will end here for today.